Section 13.6, all triad types. So you've learned the 4 types of triads individually. Now it's time to bring them all together and mix them up. So in the next exercise, you're going to be constructing the 4 triad types. And the first thing you want to do is just pay attention to the symbols. So pay attention to the capitalization and pay attention to whether you have a degree sign or a plus sign in addition to the letter. And when you're constructing these, of course, notate your root first, stack your thirds on top of it, then figure out your major triad. And then if you're going after something other than the major triad as your ultimate answer, then you might need to adjust the third and or the fifth to make one of the other types. So let's do a few of these together at the top of the next page. Let's tackle the beginning of the bass clef line here. So reading the symbols carefully, lowercase d, so that means we're ultimately going for a D minor triad. There's no degree sign indicating that it's diminished, so it's just regular old minor. So let's construct our D major triad first, D, F sharp, and A, because there's an F sharp in the key signature for D major. And what do we do to turn it into a minor triad? We just lower the third by a half step. So we get rid of that sharp, we turn it back to regular F, and we're done. Next up, F sharp diminished is what this is signifying, right? Because we've got a lowercase letter and we have the degree sign. So we know that that's our ultimate goal, but let's get an F sharp major triad down first. So there's our root. Let's stack our thirds. In the key of F sharp major, we have 6 sharps, so everything is sharped except for B. So that means, yes, absolutely, these other 2 notes are sharped. Now that's our starting point. That's our major triad. We need to turn it into diminished. How do we get to diminish? We lower both the third and the fifth by a half step each. So what that means is we're going to erase the sharp and the sharp on the third, I should say, and the sharp on the fifth. And that way we get our F sharp diminished triad. Let's do maybe one more interesting one. How about, let's do this very last one, the end of the last system here. C sharp augmented. Okay, we've got that capital letter and that plus sign. That's why we know it's C sharp augmented. So let's build the C sharp major triad first. C sharp is going to be our root. Stack your thirds. And since C sharp major has all 7 sharps in its key signature, that means every single note is sharped that belongs to the scale. So that means these other 2 notes have to be sharped as well. Okay, we've got a C sharp major triad down, but we want a C sharp augmented triad. So what do we need to do for that? We need to raise the fifth by a half step. So wait a second, we're already starting with a G sharp. How do we possibly raise that by a half step? You guessed it, we're going to turn it into a double sharp. So that's where that X symbol comes in. So this is a rare case where the double sharp symbol actually makes perfect sense. It's part of this C sharp augmented triad. Okay, so work out the rest of those, please, and please play all of these at the piano. It's a great way to reinforce not only the feel of these chords, but certainly the sound as well. Now, this last section, you get to play detective a little bit. This is pretty fun. This is where you are given a chord, and your job is to label it with the appropriate symbol. So here's what you're going to do, step by step, and we'll do a bunch of these as examples. First of all, you're going to figure out the root of the chord, and then you're going to think about the major triad that would fit on that root. Then what you're going to do is to compare what you have in the real-world scenario. So compare what you actually have in front of you to that major triad that you're constructing in your head, or perhaps on a scratch piece of paper. And when you compare, you'll notice maybe everything's the same, or maybe something has been altered. Maybe the third has been lowered, or maybe the fifth has been raised. So once you've figured out what has been altered, then you can label the chord appropriately. So let's do an example. We actually have a really good example here at the beginning. So step by step, is this a triad in root position? In other words, its normal configuration? Yeah, it is. We got space, space, space. So that means our bottom note is going to be the root. So we can call this an A chord. Now we don't know yet what kind of triad it is, but we'll just use capital letter A as a placeholder for now. Next, what you want to do is to think about the A major triad. That's like your default assumption. So what is an A major triad? A major has 3 sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp in its key signature. So that means an A major triad is going to look like this. Okay, so A, C sharp, and E. This is definitely an A major triad right there. Right now, we're not really sure what kind of triad this is. We know that its root is A, but we don't know much beyond that. Now, compare this thing here to what we have there. What has changed? Well, gosh, it looks like the third has gone from a C sharp to a regular C, and the fifth has gone from an E to an E flat. So it looks like we have lowered both the third and the fifth compared to the major triad. So what kind of chord is formed by lowering the third and the fifth of a major triad? It is indeed a diminished triad. So now we need to erase that capital A, put in a lowercase a with a degree sign, and now we can definitively say that the chord that we began with is an A diminished triad. So pretty cool, right? Let's go on to, how about this fourth one here? Looking at its construction, we've got line note, line note, line note, so it's in a normal position. So that means the bottom note is the root, and therefore the name of the chord. So the bottom note is an E flat. So this is an E flat chord of some kind. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but the root is definitely E flat. Now we're going to compare it to an E flat major triad. What does an E flat major triad look like? E flat major has 3 flats in its key signature, B flat, E flat, and A flat. So when we think of our E flat major triad, it looks like that. E flat, G, and B flat. Now compare what we have here in our major triad to what we actually have in the real world. These two are the same, of course, those two are the same, but wait a second. This B flat is now, in the real world, a B natural. So it looks like the fifth has been raised by a half step. So what kind of triad is formed when you take a major triad and you raise the fifth? Indeed, it is an augmented triad. So we'll keep the capital, but we'll add in the plus sign to indicate that it is indeed an augmented triad. And let's do one more from this first line. We've got a nice construction here, space note, space note, space note, so that means the note on the bottom is going to be the root. So F sharp is the name of our chord. We don't know yet what kind it is, though. Let's construct in our heads an F sharp major triad. Then we can compare it. So in an F sharp major triad, F sharp major has everything sharped except for B. So these other two notes are going to be illustrated here with sharps. So F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. That's our F sharp major triad. Now let's compare it to what we have. These two notes are the same. The top to the fifth of the chord is the same. But wait a second. The third of the chord has gone from an A sharp to a regular A. So the third of the chord has been lowered by a half step. So what happens when you take the third of a chord from a major triad and you lower it? You wind up with a minor triad. So we're going to revise this. It'll be a lowercase F sharp, but no other symbol is needed because minor is just lowercase, no other symbols required. So work out the rest of these, and as always, please play them at the piano. You might even try playing them at the piano first and see if you can guess the quality by ear. If it sounds happy, it's major. If it sounds sad, it's minor. If it sounds diminished, or excuse me, if it sounds quite dissonant, it's diminished. And if it sounds kind of strange, then it will be augmented. So try that as an option.